Did you know Lapras has lore dating back to a 1200-year-old Japanese fairy tale? Or that Pokemon who live on land have evolved more over the past 2 million years than Pokemon in the ocean? This video is part 2 of our coverage of a Pokedex from an official book published by Creatures Inc. that never left Japan. If you missed part 1, there's a link to that video below. Nob Ogasawara translated the first 26 Pokemon games and all their Pokedexes into English. Since he's literally the most qualified man on Earth for this job, we hired him to translate this Pokedex from Japanese to English. We left part 1 with Nob's translation of all the Pokemon that live on the water's edge. So now it's time for the forest habitat. This habitat is introduced with the words, "To small creatures, a forest is a paradise, overflowing with the bounties of nature like honey-laden flowers, fruits, and nuts." Many bug-type and small animal-type Pokemon can be seen in forests, where they avail themselves to the abundant food sources. However, the kinds of food available also make large Pokemon rare in forests. And the first entry is number 74, Caterpie. When they shed their green skin to grow, they wrap themselves in silk and transform into a cocoon. Out of all the Pokemon discovered to date, they are the fastest to evolve. The tiny bird Pokemon Pidgey is their archenemy. If Caterpie even sense the presence of Pidgey, they quickly burrow underground. Those too slow to hide fall prey to Pidgey. While a forest may appear peaceful, there are harsh rules that dictate the survival of the fittest. Although partially obscured, Korokoro's 8 of Hearts shows Pidgey preying on Caterpie. Throughout this Pokedex, and especially in the forest, we get an impression of Kanto's food chain. Which Pokemon eat plants, which eat real-life animals like plankton and fish, which Pokemon get eaten, and who preys on them. Next up is the rest of the Butterfree line. Number 75, Metapod. Caterpie's evolution. While they are encased in a hard shell, the inside is tender, making them vulnerable to harsh attacks. Worse, being mid-metamorphosis, they are challenged to move quickly. Number 76, Butterfree. A week to 10 days after evolving, Metapod undergo another evolutionary step and metamorphose into Butterfree. Their wings are covered in water-repellent, powder-like scales that enable them to fly even on rainy days. This detail about water-repellent scales helping Butterfree fly in the rain can be seen on Korokoro's 2 of Diamonds. These entries are followed by the Beedrill line. Number 77, Weedle. Common in not only forests, but also grasslands. There is a small, sharp, poison stinger of around 5 centimeters in length on the top of their head. When faced with a foe, they wiggle the stinger for intimidation. They favor food like ginkgo leaves. Number 78, Kakuna. A temporary evolutionary form taken while readying the mature form. In their previous guise as Weedle, they are said to eat many leaves in preparation for assuming this pupal form. They are almost incapable of moving. Number 79, Beedrill. Kakuna's evolution. They may appear in swarms. They buzz around at dizzying speed and jab repeatedly with the venomous stinger on their tail. When they grow and learn Twin Needle, they become untouchable. Number 80, Rattata. Their fangs are long, sharp, and continually grow throughout their life. They gnaw on hard objects to keep the ever-growing fangs workably short. They feast on nuts like walnuts and acorns. They also like processed food like cheese and milk. Rattata have to gnaw on hard objects because just like real-life rodents, their teeth never stop growing. Left unchecked, rodent teeth grow so long they break through the roof of their mouths till they can't eat anymore and eventually die of starvation. Instead of Raticate next, we have the Parasect line. Number 81, Paras. Growing from the bug's back are mushrooms called Tochukaso. The mushrooms grow in step with the Pokemon. They live under fallen trees and forests. When they grow to a certain size, they move to grasslands and marshes. Number 82, Parasect. They scatter toxic spores from the mushroom's cap. In China, the spores are apparently used as ingredients of herbal medicine. Being Paras' evolution, Parasect was included among the Pokemon of forests. However, they are almost impossible to find in forests. Tochukaso are real fungus that replace the host tissue and can affect the behavior of their insect host and even kill it. The fungus is extremely valuable in China, where they are believed to combat ailments like fatigue and even cancer, fetching high prices of over $1,000 for a single kilogram. Tochukaso are also considered an aphrodisiac, and are so highly prized that some are literally willing to kill for them. Like in 2011, when 19 Nepalese villagers were convicted of murdering several farmers in a fight over these fungal remedies. This is followed by number 83, Venomoth. The wings are covered in powdery carry toxic scales. With every flap of their wings, they scatter the scales in clouds. They are said to live in the safari zone. However, they are difficult to find due to their small population. Their larval and pupal stages are shrouded in mystery. And next up is number 84, Raticate. Rattata's evolution. Their rear feet have 3 toes with small webs in between for swimming across rivers. In addition to nuts, naturally, they also feed on fish. This is followed by possibly the most famous Pokemon, number 85, Pikachu. They live in forests where they feed mainly on nuts. They are few in number and challenging to find. There are small electricity storing pouches on each side of their cheeks that are discharged when endangered. Smart and charming with an affectionate nature, they are the most popular Pokemon among researchers. Pikachu evolved into Raichu, but many trainers prevent evolution because they don't want their Pokemon to change appearance. And here we get some bizarre artwork showing Pikachu strapped down to a table as its voltage is measured through its cheeks. This Pokedex talks a lot about what Pokemon eat, like how Pikachu feasts on nuts. And according to Ken Sugimori, sustenance is one of the most important considerations in a Pokemon's creation. He said, "One of the biggest things to decide is what a Pokemon eats. Whether or not we can think of something for a Pokemon to survive on is a huge turning point in the creation of any Pokemon. What do Pokemon based on inorganic items like Magnemite eat? It's the job of Game Freak's creative team to make sure there are proper answers for all these kinds of Pokemon. Ghost-type Pokemon, for example, might feed on the spirit or reap energy from the air around them." Over many interviews, Sugimori's made it clear that all Pokemon have defined food sources baked into their design, whether or not it ends up in the Pokedex. And next, of course, is number 86, Raichu. Their electric strikes can reach 100,000 volts. Unwittingly touching them can cause even Indian elephants to faint. This Pokemon can learn all electric-type moves. There have been no reports of Raichu sightings in forests. This is followed by number 87, Venonat. Their eyes serve as radars that let them stay active in darkness. The eyes also emit beams of light. They have been confirmed to be a bug type. They appear to have the potential for evolution, but it remains a mystery. Even though they live in the same habitat, this Pokedex breaks up several Pokemon families with its numbering system, in most cases, probably for formatting purposes, like how Vulpix and Ninetales balance out the Nidoran pages. But the Venonat family isn't just broken up, it's presented out of order, with Venomoth's entries saying its larval and pupal stages are shrouded in mystery. Venonat most resembles a real-life flea, but also bears some resemblance to venomous caterpillars that turn into moths, which makes Venonat the larval stage of Venomoth. But compared to real-life moths, they're still missing a pupal form, which is probably why the Pokedex researchers haven't figured out these two Pokemon are related. This Pokedex makes a few references to Gen 1's development, so these entries could be referring to a scrapped middle stage, or it could be hinting at a middle stage Game Freak was considering for Gen 2, the same way Poliwrath's entry hints at a new frog evolution that became Politoed. There's also a popular fan theory that because Butterfree and Venonat bear so many similarities, Butterfree and Venomoth might have been switched in development, similar to what happened with the Squirtle family, which if true, would explain where the pupal stage went. Unfortunately, all three theories suffer from a lack of evidence, so unless a future leak or developer interview sheds some light on the situation, this missing pupal stage remains as mysterious to us as it is to the researchers who wrote the Pokedex. Next up, we have this gen's serpents. Number 88. Ekans. They flick their tongue about to sense danger in their surroundings. This carnivore swallows all food whole with almost no chewing. They love the eggs of Pidgey and Spearow. Rattata are also preyed upon occasionally. If they swallow a Rattata, they can go without food again for a month. They grow by shedding repeatedly. In the winter, they hibernate in the warm soil of forests. In the summer, they are also common sights in grasslands. Number 89, Arbok, Ekans evolution. Consequently, this Pokemon is also a venomous serpent. The markings of their belly have the appearance of a frightening face. Timid foes flee at the sight of such a face. They are skilled at using glare that induces paralysis in their foe. If you encounter an Arbok on a path, you should avert your gaze. They are mortal enemies of Raticate. The two Pokemon fight viciously like a viper and a mongoose. Interestingly, the rivalry between Arbok and Raticate didn't see much action throughout the series, so the dynamic music was eventually recreated for Seviper and Zangoose in Generation 3. On this page, Benimaru Ito provides some artwork showing a variety of Arbok belly patterns, which also appeared in the Pokemon Adventures manga, where each pattern has a special strength, like boosted speed and attack stats. Arbok's in-game Pokedex entries say it has different belly markings from area to area, and 6 variations have been confirmed. But unfortunately, the concept for Arbok having different designs in different areas was abandoned after Generation 2. 2 designs appeared in the game's first 2 generations, but instead of introducing more variations, all future games in the series just reused the first 2 over and over. The next habitat is for the creatures of the seas, with the Pokedex telling us these Pokemon aren't as intelligent and haven't evolved much over the past 2 million years as their land-dwelling counterparts. The book gives us a brief intro to the habitat, saying, "The sea-dwelling Pokemon retain attributes from ancient times. They do so because the underwater environments have not undergone major changes. The seas are also more amenable to life than on land, so there was little need for marine Pokemon to evolve. With some exceptions, there are no highly intelligent Pokemon in the seas." The first Pokemon for this habitat is number 90, Gyarados. Extremely vicious and violent. They completely incinerate all matter with Hyper Beam fired from their mouth. They apparently live on the seafloor and in deep water. As a result, they are rarely seen. The most recent specimen was a corpse washed up on shore 35 years ago. They are omnivorous with fangs capable of crushing boulders. Their steel-hard scales can be fashioned into jewelry like rings. Such accessories command astonishing prices. Next up is the Sea King line. Number 91, Goldeen. The dorsal and ventral fins are built up like muscles. They help propel this Pokemon through water at a speed of 5 knots. Having little intelligence, they are known to unwittingly swim into a Gyarados' mouth, where they become an easy meal. Number 92, Sea King. Goldeen's evolution. Using their drill-like horn, they hollow out boulders to make their nest. They swim up rivers to spawn every year. This is followed by the Tentacruel line, number 93, Tentacool. From their crystal-clear eyes, they emit mysterious rays of light. They feed on plankton. 99% of their body is composed of water. Number 94, Tentacruel. The 80 tentacles move about freely to ensnare prey like small fish. The tentacles also have venomous needles that induce poisoning and full-body paralysis. For those qualities, they are called Gangsters of the Sea. The nickname Gangsters of the Sea was never used in any in-game Pokedex, but was mentioned in Ash's Pokedex in episode 19 of the anime, which, just like Scyther and Electabuzz's hatred of Red, was presumably lifted directly from this Pokedex. In other words, though this book is largely unknown outside Japan, it's had a lasting influence on the series since the very beginning. Next up is the Dugong line. Number 95, Seal. The light blue-haired hide is thick and tough. They remain active even in intense cold of -40 degrees Celsius. They live in sea caves and the like. During the day, they often drift in the sea, probably searching for food. Number 96, Dugong. Seal's evolution. They are cloaked entirely in pure white hair. Their blubber reaches an incredible thickness of 30 centimeters. They are highly resistant to cold. In fact, they become more active when the temperature is falling. This is followed by number 97, Lapras. Intelligent enough to understand human speech. Being placid in nature, they prefer to ferry people across water on their back rather than fight. Needless to say, they are skilled at using the move Surf. They can also learn a diverse mix of moves like Mist, Confuse Ray, and Hydro Pump. Little headway has been made in their study due to their small population. Some claim the turtle ridden by the folklore hero Taro Urashima was actually a Lapras. While Lapras' design was clearly inspired by plesiosaurs and Scottish folklore's Loch Ness Monster, it also used some lore from the fairy tale about the Minogame that took Taro to Ryujian's palace, which we covered in Blastoise's entry in part 1. Ryujin itself also went on to inspire Lugia in Generation 2, but that's a topic we already covered in our Lugia Origins video. So rather than repeat it, we'll leave a link in the corner and below if you want to hear the full story. Alongside this Pokedex entry, the book provides this artwork of Lapras swimming with a boy on its back. According to Sugimori, Lapras was one of the first Pokemon ever created. It can be seen in some of the earliest Pokemon concept art, and in a July 2000 interview, he explained that originally Pokemon were made to serve specific functions, like Rhydon being used to carry things on land, Lapras for ferrying people across the ocean, and Clefairy being a cute pet. Next up is the Cloyster line. Number 98, Shellder. Encased within a shell that is harder than diamond. The body inside, however, is surprisingly tender. They are good with the move Clamp, which squeezes the enemy between the shell halves. Number 99, Cloyster. Said to be Shellder's evolution. The shell is extremely durable. Even a direct hit from a napalm bomb can't destroy it. The shell opens only when attacking. Their spike cannon, which repeatedly stabs the foe with spikes, is devastating. This entry implies that not only were napalm bombs used in this universe, perhaps in the war hinted at in the games, but that someone actually witnessed a Cloyster surviving one of these napalm bombings. There's various hints scattered across the series referring to a recent war, like how Surge says electric Pokemon saved him during the war, and a journal in the Vermilion Pokemon Center saying he was a pilot back home in America. More conspiracy theory-minded fans also point out that Red's dad is MIA, and Blue seemingly has no parents at all. This entry's reference to napalm bombs adds one more piece to the puzzle, as does Koffing's entry that we'll get to later. Next up is number 100, Poliwag. The slick black skin is thin and damp. A portion of their internal organs can be seen as a spiral. They can be categorized as relatives of tadpoles. This entry tells us that Poliwag and tadpoles evolved from a common ancestor, or possibly from one another. According to Satoshi Tajiri, the iconic swirl on Poliwag's belly is modeled after the intestinal tracts of the tadpoles he fished for as a kid, which means the black swirl is actually poop traveling through its digestive system. It's Tajiri's favorite Pokemon, and the book features this photo of him saying, "I want to snuggle Poliwag." And we continue the line with number 101, Poliwhirl. Poliwag's evolution. While tadpoles grow into frogs, Poliwag remained in the tadpole form and grew muscular to end up as Poliwhirl. While their legs are well developed for life on land, they appear to prefer life in water. This page provides a diagram of Poliwhirl's insides, provided to the researchers by Professor Oak, which means he's been dissecting frog Pokemon in his laboratory. If you've ever wondered how many toes Poliwhirl has, or where its mouth is, here's your answer. And finally, there's number 102, Poliwrath. They are strong swimmers capable of multiple styles, including the crawl and butterfly. Even Olympic swimmers are no match for their speed. However, it appears their muscles developed specifically for swimming, as they are not fast at running. While they are thought to be Poliwhirl's evolution, they remain in tadpole form. It remains to be seen if they will evolve further into frog form. Further research is awaited. This reference to a further evolution into a frog is a tease for Politoed in Gold and Silver. Leaks in recent years have revealed several Politoed designs developers came up with during Gen 2's production. So even though they knew there'd be a new frog evolution in early 1996, they hadn't decided what it would actually look like. And they might not have decided how it would evolve either, as this entry makes it sound like Politoed evolved from Poliwrath. A few months later, Tajiri sat down for an interview with Korokoro, where he hinted that Politoed would evolve directly from Poliwag. In the final game, Politoed branched off from Poliwhirl when traded with a King's Rock, a nod to an early Poliwrath design that wore a crown. Now we move on to the Seadra line. Number 103, Horsea. They keep balance using their spirally coiled tail. When they sense danger, they may spit black ink. Every spring, the females each lay several thousand eggs on seaweed, but most end up as Goldeen bait. Rare among Pokemon, the males raise the young. Number 104, Seadra. Horsea's evolution. Their nature turns vicious from evolving. Carelessly trying to touch them can result in punctures from the spikes growing all over their body. The intense pain can cause fainting. This is followed by number 105, Magikarp. Virtually hopeless in terms of power and speed. If anything were to happen, they immediately use Splash and flop about. They are the world's weakest and most pathetic Pokemon. However, the most recent studies made an incredible discovery. Dragon cells were found in Magikarp's body. Anticipation runs high for deeper studies. Along with the Venonat family, Magikarp and Gyarados are the only evolutionary line in this dex numbered in reverse. These videos translating the Pokedex comprises 46 of the book's 143 pages, but in its entirety, the book is technically a strategy guide. For example, one section shows watercolor maps of the entire Kanto region, complete with encounter rate percentages and a step-by-step walkthrough of the entire game. So it's strange that the book goes out of its way to hide facts from its readers, like Magikarp evolving into Gyarados. It might have been written this way to prevent spoilers, though that runs counter to the entire premise of a strategy guide. Or it might have just been flavor text. Maybe someday a beta leak will reveal these anomalies were a reference to the game's development, but as of the making of this this video, why only these two families got this treatment is a bit of a mystery. And now on to the next habitat, Pokemon of the Skies, with an intro that says, because flying Pokemon must spot their food from up high, their eyesight is acutely developed. Many are good, doting parents. They fly to forests, grasslands, and the seas to capture bugs and fish that they deliver to their beloved chicks awaiting their return in nests on trees. This overview leads into the Pidgeot line. Number 106. Pidgey. They do not like to fight. If surrounded, they scatter sand to blind their foes and make their getaway. They hide among trees and tall grass, when feeding on small bugs and the like. While they feast on Caterpie and Weedle, they oddly ignore Venonat. Number 107. Pidgeotto. Pidgey's evolution. They dive from an altitude of 800 meters to capture prey. The claws on their feet are powerfully developed. They have no trouble carrying and execute their prey, weighing 25 kilograms to their nest 100 kilometers away. Number 108. Pidgeot. They fly around at Mach 2 speed at 1200 meters altitude. If they encounter a foe while on the ground, they spread their gorgeous wings for intimidation. Their search for food leads them to even the seas, where they make easy prey of meaninglessly splashing Magikarp. It goes without saying that they are the evolution of Pidgeotto. Mach 2 is about 2,470 kilometers an hour, making Pidgeot the second fastest Pokemon in Kanto, only about 1% slower than Dragonite. The example of Pidgeot preying on Magikarp can be found in new Pokemon Snap, which initially shocked some fans. Next up is the Fearow line. Number 109, Spearow. Compared with Pidgey, they are much more aggressive. They mainly search for prey among tall grass where they can be seen busily flitting about. While they have little power, they learn the rare Mirror move. Number 110, Fearow. Spearow's evolution. They can soar high all day long on their broad wings. Their powerful beaks let them swallow prey like Rattata whole. This is followed by number 111, Magnemite. They move around while levitating. The units on their sides radiate energy like electromagnetic waves. Although they are fundamentally different from the other Pokemon of the Skies profiled here, they have been included here for the time being because there is nowhere else to group them. Further research is awaited. According to Ken Sugimori, Magnemite was the first inorganic Pokemon ever created. He says Satoshi Tajiri gave him a work order that just said, make a magnet Pokemon. So he got to work and eventually came up with Magnemite. Next up is number 112, Magneton. Magnemite's evolution. What keeps this Pokemon levitating is unknown for now. Formed by multiple Magnemite linked together, they discharge intense magnetic rays and high voltage power. These are followed by number 113, Doduo, a two-headed Pokemon discovered 3 years ago. They are probably a mutation. They appear to dislike flying. They seem to be much better at running based on their 100 kilometers per hour speed. In the near future, it is feared their wings will devolve and rob them of their ability to fly. You can't see them, but Doduo does have wings. Pokemon Yellow's Pokedex even says its short wings make flying difficult. Apparently, the researchers who wrote this entry fear that evolution will eventually remove their wings altogether, similar to how Zubat lost its eyes. The book provides this artwork, explaining that both Doduo's heads have to work together to be able to function. Next up is number 114, Dodrio, Doduo's evolution. A rare species that is hardly ever found. Their 3 heads express the emotions joy, sadness, and anger. Some historians have sworn that in ancient times there was a religion that thrived deep in Central and South America which revered Dodrio as their symbol. We dug deep, but couldn't find any evidence of Central or South American gods that resemble Dodrio. But it does bear a resemblance to South America's largest bird, the Rhea americana, which gets its name from the Greek goddess Rhea, the daughter of Earth goddess Gaia and the sky god Uranus. She's known in early tradition as the Mother of Gods, and it's possible the Rhea americana was combined with the concept of the triple deity, like Christianity's Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. But that's all just speculation on our part, and we can't say with certainty that's what the developers were thinking when they identified Dodrio as the symbol of an American religion. This is followed by number 115, Farfetch'd. They always carry a plant stalk for crafting their nest when walking. A recent study also revealed the stalk to be also food for emergencies. Several years ago, the mass media reported on the deliciousness of cooking Farfetch'd with their stalk. This news spread nationwide, resulting in a massive decline in their population. As we explained in part 1, Japan's CoroCoro Comics included a set of cutout playing cards in a late 1996 issue. The card set's 10 of diamonds has an illustration of Farfetch'd escaping someone's kitchen. Humans eating Farfetch'd may sound barbaric to some fans, but the concept is actually baked into its design. In Japan, there's an expression, "A duck comes bearing onions." So in other words, the soup just delivered itself. It's often used when something surprising but convenient happens, or sometimes as a way of saying, "Here comes a chump." The expression is often shortened to kamonegi, which means duck onion. And this Pokemon's Japanese name is also Kamonegi. The Pokédex says after the people of Kanto started eating Farfetch'd en masse, their population massively declined, which might explain why you can't find any in the wild. There's only one Farfetch'd in the game, and it's only obtainable via trade in Vermilion City. Fortunately, their population appears to be bouncing back, as the Pokédex and Crystal version says, in order to prevent their extinction, more people have made an effort to breed these Pokemon. The next habitat is that of humans, the urban environment. But we still have a lot of this script left, and it's already longer than we thought it'd be. So we'll cover urban Pokemon and every remaining type in a third video soon. So make sure you're subscribed for that one. We also have a video on the Lost Pokemon movie that had real dinosaurs in it, so check that out if you'd like. My name is Nekra, and I am a commentator and content creator for Pokemon, and you can find me uploading VGC content on my YouTube. See you in part 3!